So let's jump into it. Shawn, I'd love for you to be able to introduce yourself. I tend to get a little bit flowery and over the top when I introduce clients. I would maybe say something like, this guy has literally taken some time out of his day where he actually saves lives to do this podcast. So, you should pay attention, because people's lives are at stake at this point. I would say stuff like that. But for purposes of this conversation, please go ahead.
All right, well, I would say that don't worry, our emergency departments are fully staffed and by board certified emergency physicians, so we are in good shape. So my name is Shawn Patterson. I am an emergency medicine physician by trade. I've been an emergency medicine physician since 2008. I moved to Naples, Florida in 2014 with my wife, who's a pediatric emergency medicine physician, and over the years, stumbled into leadership by saying that I might be interested in joining a critical care committee in 2014. And lo and behold, in 2024, I'm the chief medical officer of the hospital and the system medical director for the emergency departments within the system. It's a great gig. You go to work, you take care of people that it's not their best day. You feel thankful for the things you have, and you also have amazing stories. So it's a good gig. I'm blessed to be an emergency medicine physician, and that's what I do in my day job.
Awesome, man. So you just kind of fell into that position of managing several hospitals and hundreds of professionals.
Well, the problem is that when you take care of a problem, and when you're an emergency medicine physician by trade, you don't tend to take no for an answer. We find creative ways to treat people. We use, interestingly, most of the supplies that are now sold worldwide for emergent situations like emergent cricothyrotomy for children, things like chest tube devices, were basically MacGyvered by emergency medicine physicians in the 70s and 80s. And so, bigger companies like McKesson and them buy those products, the patents and whatnot, and sell them in bulk. But so we tend not to take no for an answer, and I think, and Divine Digital knows that with my development experience that whenever we've had a challenge, I'm like, well, there's got to be a solution. So let's look at this in a creative way, and when you do that in an administrative space, it tends to make waves, and that propelled me to that position. So, but I have an amazing team. And I wouldn't be anywhere without the people that work with me. So we'll want to give them kudos as well.
I'll tell you this, that same attitude that you apply to your, let's call it your 9 to 5, right? Your day job. It's been awesome working with you, man. Everything's been very straightforward. It's been very clear, communication back and forth. So it turns out we actually really like working with medical directors. So if anyone happens to watch this video and you're a medical director, give us a call. We like working with you. So, interestingly enough, you built an app with us, and it really has absolutely nothing to do with the medical field at all. It's not even like a stretch.
No,
so
not at all.
What I love, man, I always like hearing it from the creators itself. Tell us what you're comfortable with about GOAT Grub so far, and that's totally up to your purview. It's not available to the public quite yet. The only request I have is that you have a particular functionality in your app, and I think you might know what this is. That is probably my favorite, at least top 3 favorite of any app we've built so far. And do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know what I'm hinting at?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
If you're comfortable talking about that, I'd love for you to kind of,
So, I guess I'll start with, how did I end up deciding that I wanted to build an app, right?
Yeah.
And so it's 2024. In 2017, I was traveling with Nicole, and
your wife?
Yeah, my wife's name is Nicole, and we were traveling, and this is pre-children, so we like to check out a bunch of restaurants. We still do, but we often tend towards the ones that are more children friendly now. But and I would do all this research before our vacations, where I would spend hours looking through Google and Facebook and TripAdvisor reviews and trying to determine if we're going to be in a place for 7 days, where are we going to find the best things that we like. pizza, burgers, ice cream, seafood, things like that. And invariably, we would have one or two really great experiences when we would go on a week-long trip, but we would whiff on a ton.
Right.
And we would have what I would call meh meals. Like we'd be like, we,
I'm alive,
we're here in,
but
we're here in San Francisco, and I felt like we had two really great meals, but we ate 21 meals over the course of the trip, and so that was a little bit discouraging. And so when I thought about how we review restaurants, I realized that there was a problem, and that's that when people search for food, they're not searching for a restaurant; they're searching for a specific item or cuisine or a meal. And the problem is you could pull up a pizza restaurant. You could say, "Hey,
right.
I see that in our hometown, if you type in best pizza restaurant, Naples, you get probably 30 to 40 places that have over 4.5 to 4.7 stars. And so how do you differentiate that? And you go in, you look, and some of those reviews aren't about pizza. They're about, the parking lot gets flooded when it rains heavily and my shoes got wet.
Yeah.
Or the paper towel dispenser in the bathroom was completely empty.
Or it was too busy.
Yeah. And so it's not about the food at all.
Right.
And so I tried to think of, like an emergency medicine physician. I said, well, what's the diagnosis? The diagnosis is that these review sites don't provide me any useful information about how good a specific item, meal, cuisine is going to be at a different place. So I tried to come up with a treatment. And so the idea was that, well, what if we just ask people, what their greatest of all time locally and nationally was? What's your greatest of all time pizza locally, greatest of all time pizza nationally? And you can put that into an app, and other people can see it, and you get one, right? And the problem with reviews is I could go do Google reviews all day long, Facebook reviews. I could spend all day. I could probably place 50 to 100 detailed reviews, and what does that mean? When you have more of something, it tends not to be as valuable. But just like superlatives in your high school yearbook, most likely to succeed, most likely to become a movie star. The greatest of all time is a superlative. You only get one. In our instance, it's two because we use a local and national GOAT. But it really makes the user think about value. And the other thing that transmitted to that idea was that when I would go home and I would talk, be sitting in the emergency department at 2 o'clock in the morning and talking with the nurses and techs that I work with, the conversation would invariably be, where do you guys go for pizza around here? What's your favorite pizza place? What's the best taco place around here? So that's how we think about where we would like to go get food. We don't think about it in the sense of stars or reviews or whatnot. The other thing when you do research is you realize that people that are research savvy for reviews, they're going to place heavier value on negative reviews.
Yep.
And the thing about our model is that there's no negativity. If you have a bad experience at restaurant X, don't go on our app and choose to do it. There's nothing for you to do. You can't put it in negative
it's
feedback.
Like the software pardon me. It's like the software version of if you don't have anything nice to say, you don't get to say anything at all.
That's right. That's right. And so, and the other thing that it does is we all know. We get surveys all the time. Every business we go to now is sending us a survey. I went to Disney World last month, and how was your stay? How was your experience? You go to a restaurant, or you have somebody come work on your house. You get a survey within minutes sometimes. They're onerous. Takes a lot of time. There's a lot of questions. And similar to the story of blog.com and then subsequently Twitter. Anytime that you simplify a process for a user, make it quicker and more to the point, it tends to catch on. So we decided in 2023 to start pursuing, hey, let's think about what would it take to create an app that does this. And that's what led me to a Google search. And I ended up finding a development company right down the road from me. And decided to, on just a whim, take a meeting and say, hey, why don't I go meet with them? And Dave, you were the first one that reached out to me. And I said, well, let's meet. Let's get together and see what this entails. And it definitely was somewhat of a leap of faith to go from my day-to-day, which is I'm an emergency medicine physician. I know medicine. I know what I should do for patients. I know when you come in with a specific problem, what I need to worry about. but I don't know anything about creating apps.
Right, right.
I don't know anything about creating apps. I know that I have this idea, and I
Let,
know
let
that I
me
want
let
to.
me ask you this too.
Yeah.
Um, obviously, man, your position in life. We can make the determination that you're pretty sharp, right? You can navigate some pretty complex things, right? What do you like? You came into this process, and again, you had to take a leap of faith, and I think everybody has to, right? Unless you want to dedicate, a couple 40-hour weeks for the rest of the couple years here to learn how to build software and what's what, it kind of only makes sense, right, to work with an agency like us. And here's the question: what was like the initial, couple conversations, or maybe it was deliverables, maybe it was past work, I don't know, but what was it that kind of made you say, like, okay, these might be my guys? Like, I don't know this yet, right? But prototype seems like it's worth the risk at this point.
Yeah. So I think that really what it was, right? And you hit the nail on the head. Like, I could try and teach myself how to code, right? And I'm pretty savvy with Adobe Illustrator, and I create, logos, and
Yeah,
will change things around and send very detailed feedback to you guys. But coding is a different thing, and
yeah,
that's a whole re-education that I would have to do. And as a working emergency medicine physician who manages 5 emergency departments, and it's just not, there
you don't have a
wasn't
lot
the
of free
time.
time.
I got 2 kids, I'm
Right.
busy, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
so I don't have time to learn how to code. So really, when I looked at Divine Digital, and it was spelled out, this process of, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to work with you on developing a comprehensive scope, where we basically write down in Word format
Yep.
what your app is, what you want your app to do. And then we're going to really refine that and make it exactly what you think you want your app to be. And then we're going to take that next step, and we're going to create a wireframe. Now it's pseudo app, right? It's not,
Yep.
there's no functionality to it. It's pictures that you click and take you to another picture of what the app would look like and what you would expect the functionality to be. And that's really where I was like, okay, well, I can see that there's a process. It's not just,
Right.
hey, this is what I think my app's going to be. I need coders, because I knew that if that happened, the amount of iterations that it would take to get to the product that is in my mind
Yep.
it would be infinite. On top of that, having a defined starting point is important, because what I've learned through this process is it's never at the end what it was at the beginning.
No. Yes,
Because
sir.
as
Yeah.
you're working through things, you're going to say, for instance, GOAT Grub, we can talk about this. There's a free version and there's a premium version, right? And the one thing we worry about with reviews, and GOAT Grub's not a review app, it's a superlative app, but is cultivation, right? So we don't want free users be able to go on and be an owner of a business and
Right.
basically put 30 goats at their pizza place, and really cultivate where they are. And so, a lot of that was kind of, as we were building it, I'm on a run and I'm thinking, that really is a problem. But the nice part is I can say, okay, well, how would I fix that? Well, there's a couple of things we have going with the app. We can set a filter to where premium users could only see premium goats, so they could filter out the free goats if they're worried about cultivation. And we could also limit the amount of goats that a free user can put at a single venue.
Yep.
So, if a restaurant owner wants to create 50 free accounts and put free goats, then that's a lot of work. It's a lot to do. You're going to sign in and out a lot. You're going to be managing multiple logins. So I said, okay, that's great. But the way that, if you have a starting point, you have a defined comprehensive scope, you have a wireframe, you're working through the process, you can say, okay, that's where we're gonna do that. And I think really what sold me on you guys was the process, the 3-step process, and knowing that there was defined goals and guideposts of how we were going to get to where we wanted to be.
And Shawn, that's like a perfect example. I'm actually going to steal that and start using it on sales calls and intro calls, because that's one of those things. It's not even, you wouldn't even call it direct functionality. It's almost incentivization, right? It's a social network because people are going to be interacting socially on it. And really all you can do is provide incentives and disincentives. Hey, it's really easy, fast, cheap, and accurate to do things this way. It's kind of a pain in the ass. It's really arduous. It may not even work if you do things this way. So you kind of said there, it's the internet at the end of the day. It's software. People are going to find ways to abuse things, even if it's not effective. Like that's probably going to happen. What you can do is make it really a diminishing return, like on your platform. To get on there and do that, like that's going to take a lot of time. You're going to have to create multiple accounts. And that's if we don't find out that you used, Tim Smith 001, Tim Smith 003, Tim Smith 004, and then just delete them all anyways, right? So I guess the point I'm trying to make is if we hadn't mapped everything out, like if your mind was constantly in that circle of innovation and iteration, I don't know if you would have had time to think about like the practical application of certain things so that we can correct those before it's ever launched, because we're in a situation now where we just prevented that from happening. And that's like a way better situation to be in than 1 year down the road post-launch. Now we're retroactively trying to fix things, and it gets kind of ugly when you have to do that. So I think that you're right, man. That's like one of the crown jewels of the process is it allows you, instead of like, okay, I have to build an app. How the hell do I do that? There's a million things I need to think about. It takes you from that situation. And again, we've done this for years, and we've launched hundreds of these. I can tell you confidently, we still can't sit down and map out the sum total of an app just from a couple phone calls or a couple conversations. Like, it takes time. You have to build something, look at it, check it out, back up a little bit, change it, go back. And again, man, I think it almost gives you freedom of decision making and allows you to make much better decisions, because I think when we started to kind of interact with that concept, man, we had already done so much work that we knew was solid, was going to work. And it kind of allows you to kind of, like I said, go into the minutia of things and really kind of polish these. Does that make sense? Is that your experience as well?
And when you have that defined scope and you're working on it and it's this kind of living thing, you know, and with you guys' communication with us and the way that you guys use Monday.com and the way that we track the process, like, I know that those are the two ideas that I came up for limiting that problem, but there are other solutions that are readily apparent. So, we have a venue analytics page where we can see a venue's goats. If we decided that we wanted to build some code to say, all right, I want to see the breakdown of this venue, how many of their goats are free goats and how many of their goats are premium goats. And then we could flag outliers. We could say, if there's venues that have 80% or more of their goats are free goats, we need to take a look at, what's going on there. So there's other options. And that's the thing that having a defined scope, going through the process, knowing each change and each iteration, and having that communicated clearly, you have a sense of what your app is. And I think that's the biggest, anybody who would be interested in going on this journey, I think that's the biggest advice that I could give, is that if you want to build an app and you don't want to really be involved in how it grows and how it works, and it's just, this is what I want, sign the comprehensive scope, and I get it, it's probably going to be disadvantageous for you with anybody that would build it for you.
Right.
Because you're going to see things when you get the first tester or the first opportunity, you're going to say, oh, yeah, I guess that's how it's delineated in the comprehensive scope, but that's not really what I was thinking it would do.
Right, it's not wrong.
It's not wrong.
It's not what I had assumed either. And I always use that analogy. I think we've even talked about this. Like, okay, you're building a new home, right? You're building your dream house. And you connect with a contractor who is well-intentioned, great human being, wants to be efficient, maybe even won some awards, right? That's your contractor. And you say, hey, man, I need you to build me my dream house, and it's got to be done in about 2 years. And he says, yeah, great, that's going to be $500,000. You say, great, fantastic, here's $500,000. I'll see you in 2 years. When you walk into that dream house, listen, it's going to be so well done. It is going to be, polished. Everything's great, documented, fantastic house. The chances that it's your dream house and not just an exceptional house, you know what I mean? Like, you are not, I can promise you're not walking into the house that's been up here for 2 years. you were walking into something completely different. And again,
or
even
you
if he's
did,
very well intentioned.
or you didn't
Yeah.
even think about some of the things. Like,
Yes. Yeah. That's
oh man,
another big
like,
part. Yeah.
oh, why does this door swing this way? Oh,
Yeah.
I should have had it swing the other way. This makes no
Yeah.
sense.
Right.
So it's clearly, there's clearly a benefit to
Yes.
being intricately involved. And so I would recommend any person who dreams of being an app designer or, business owner of of a mobile phone application, that they become educated on how code works. Don't learn how to code,
Right.
but just understand how applications work. Have a working knowledge of that. I will say that there's probably there's two books that you probably should recommend to every client that approaches Divine Digital. The first one is a children's book, and it's called What You Do With an Idea by Kobe Yamada. And I don't know if you guys have ever read that book. But, spoiler alert, it's about a child that one day turns around and there's an idea. And the idea is like a little egg with legs following him. And at first he's like, oh, I didn't know what to think about it. And it's weird. And I was afraid to show it to other people. But over time, he keeps coming back to the idea, and then he feeds the idea, and the idea flourishes, and then the idea hatches and basically goes around the world and makes an impact. And so that book was really paramount in me feeling comfortable that, hey, I got to do something with this idea that I have. I know I'm a doctor. I know I'm not an app designer, but I didn't go to school to become an app designer. I'm not a coder, but I've got this idea. I think it's a great idea. I need to foster it and grow it. And you guys were the ones to help me out with that. So I'd recommend What Do You Do With an Idea. You might just want to give it to every person that signs on with you guys.
Okay, we might start doing that,
Yeah. And then the other one is a book that you guys are probably familiar with called Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Projects by Nur Ayal.
Yeah.
And that there's really two categories of apps in my mind, right? So there's problems of necessity apps, right? So, and we've talked before about, one of the challenges we have at our hospital system is we have multiple emergency departments. And on any given day, one could be slammed, and then you could have another one that's a ghost town. And, we're paying emergency medicine physicians, nurses, techs to staff all of them. Wouldn't it be great if there was an app out there that was like a stoplight, and it could pull information from our emergency department busyness, and it could tell people, like, here's where you're going to have your best emergency department experience. And that's kind of an app of necessity, right? And you have to always think when you're designing an app, like, who's going to pay for this app? There's cloud costs, there's back-end costs, there's development costs. Right. Yes. Yeah, so any app that you would think that you would want to create, if it's not solving a problem for your business that saves you money, then it has to be an app that has a revenue stream, right? So there's these apps that are problems of necessity, and that would be like the stoplight app, and that would save us time and money in our emergency departments because we would be able to spread the load across 4 emergency departments, staff them more equally. And so that's a problem of necessity app. Then there's problems of enjoyment, which is what GOAT Grub is, right? Like, nobody really needs to know where the greatest of all time pizza is in Jackson, Wyoming. But it would be enjoyable to, right?
Yes.
And it's called Hand Fire Pizza. So that's a freebie.
Wow. I did not think you had an answer for that. That's
if you go to Jackson, Wyoming, Hand Fire Pizza is the spot to go. Don't go to diners, drive-ins, and dives. They'll tell you about Pinky G's Pizza in Jackson, Wyoming. You'll see it on Food Network. Dumpster fire. Don't go there. You go to Hand Fire Pizza. Okay.
All right.
So there's those problems of enjoyment, and so those are the ones where you have to be creative with revenue model. Because just because something solves a problem that would be enjoyable doesn't mean that it's going to make money, right?
Exactly.
And so what we did with GOAT Grub, and you guys know, is that there's a premium version which has many more options to Goat. We're up to, I think, 630 or something like that that our running list. And it has features like excluding chains and making it to where you could say if you're in Chicago, you don't want to know that Five Guys is the greatest of all time burger for somebody, because you can get that down the street here at Wiggins, but you want to have those types of features, then it's a cost per year. And so there's that portion of the revenue model, but we also built an advertising platform for small businesses where if you're an independent restaurant and you want to be able to communicate with our users, then there's a nominal cost for that. And so that's how I had to think about it, right? Because I had this idea, right? Well, GOAT Grub's great. this idea that, and by the way, it's called GOAT Grub. So, so it's a great idea, but, how do we monetize it? And so I would say that if you're thinking about creating an app and it's a problem of enjoyment, not a problem of necessity, then you really need to spend some time on fleshing that out in a very, very defined way. Because if it doesn't work, then it's not worth doing from a financial standpoint.
And here's something I do kind of want to focus on as far as your application goes. And we've had this conversation, I don't know how many times. It is often just as important what you keep out of an application as obviously what you include in an application, because you are targeting a very specific group of folks who want the greatest food of all times, not pretty waitresses, not it's very convenient towards to my house, not my cousin's uncle's nephew just opened this place up, so I feel like my wife said I have to give him a good review, right? And it excludes people like me, which is actually a good thing, and here's why it does. I am a human being experience person. If I walk into the restaurant up the street and I love the people in there and I'm chumming them up back and forth and they're telling me, you got a great beard, all the stuff my grandma tells me, like I'm handsome, the most handsome guy in the world, smart, great beard, all that stuff.
These are true stories.
Yeah, I know, right? Why would they disagree? But they hand me a burnt hot dog. I'm like, 5 out of 5. I love this restaurant. Where's Portnoy at? He needs to get down here and review this place. But here's the deal. I also see value in, if I'm going to get pizza and bring it back to my house, if I'm going to get food and I just want the food, right? That's my purpose. Then I really don't care what the waitresses are like. I don't care if it's a good experience when I walk in. Here's a prime example from I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, right? The original Primanti's sandwich shop. I don't know if you've ever had the privilege of, have you ever seen it?
No.
Okay, Shawn, it is a little hole in the wall in a back alley. So it's a chain now. But growing up, it was like a Pittsburgh thing, only a Pittsburgh thing. You have to walk down a side alley in the middle, like the heart of Pittsburgh City. And there's barely even a sign. You walk into this place, it looks like the example they would use for health inspectors to not pass. If you ever see something like this, shut that place down immediately, right? They're mean to you. They're mean as hell. They don't ask you for your order. They just look at you what do you want when you walk in the door, right? All that being said, terrible experience. Would never recommend anybody physically go there. The sandwiches are outstanding. They are the best sandwich in Pittsburgh. So, that's one of those scenarios. If I just want the good food, I don't care about the setting. I don't care about, who's there, how they treat me. I want to know what the best food in this area is in this category. That's what your app's for. And here's the important part, and we talked about this too. Be really good at what your app is supposed to be good at. Right? Be the best for what it's supposed to be. Not a Swiss Army knife, where you can get cooking tips on this app too, and maybe you figure out how to make Red Lobster biscuits on here too, or something like that. And I think you did a great job at that. GOAT Grub is very specific. Go ahead.
That there's a prime example of that. So food trucks, we had to make a decision because the average duration that a food truck is in business is less than 24 months. So I think it's 18 to 22 months, depending on the location. Yeah. So there was no way for us to create a database and track food trucks, number one, because they wouldn't be in existence long enough for the database to not have to be just constantly curated.
Yeah.
And then number two, where are they at, right? So, we're a location-based app. Where are they going to be? And so, it was tough because I like food trucks, and I think the food truck experience is there's some amazing food. There is GOAT food at food trucks, but we just could not, at least in this first iteration, and when we're trying to launch a product that is consistent and useful, we just couldn't do food trucks at the start. Now, is there potential for that in the future? Potentially, but I think you're right. You focus on the things that you can be good at. Yeah. But I will tell you, Dave, you don't have to worry if you love the burnt hot dog place because of the people. you can still favorite places on Goat Grub and get communications and deals from them. So
yeah,
it won't show up as a goat for other individuals to see, but you will get their communications and you will get their deals. And
yeah, because listen, that's not nothing, right? That does matter. But again, your app is for the connoisseur of pizza,
it's for the I really envision it for people who are like, I want to have the best and I want to know where or like. And most of us have our favorite food item. If it's pizza versus enchiladas, there's going to be people who choose enchiladas every time. And there's going to be people who choose pizza every time. And so, we want people to be able to explore that. And I brought up the hooked model, and one of the things when you're building an app is if you can get your users to invest in your app, not in the way of like monetarily investing, but at time. In your app, then it can be more successful. And that's the way that Goat Grub, with its palette profile, that you can build in there, like these are where all my goats are at. And so you can go in and view, and then, they pull it up and they're like, oh, they added apple fritter. Like, where is my greatest of all? Have I had an apple fritter around here that I really like? And it really makes it to where it's an engaging experience for the user. So I will tell the story about the specific thing in the app that you want me to tell.
Please.
So when I decided on the name Goat Grub, I knew almost immediately that we were going to have a notification sound that was the screaming goat.
Yes.
That you guys have probably seen featured in, I think, a T-Mobile commercial.
Yeah.
You can also
Super Bowl commercial. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And you can also Google Taylor Swift's Trouble goat version. And the goat scream replaces her singing in a certain portion of the chorus. And it was that's a while back. It might have been a 2015, 2016 cultural phenomenon was the goat scream. So I'm thinking, all right, is that how could I potentially get that as a notification sound? And, what are the rights to it? And I'm going to break everybody's heart. It's not a goat. So that's actually not a goat screaming. That is a video that someone put online of a goat, and goats do make incredibly weird noises. So, if you have some time to burn this afternoon or whenever you're listening to this podcast, YouTube search weird goat noises, or goats making weird noises, and there's 15-minute compilations of what sounds like humans screaming, talking. I mean, it's awesome. So just spend time doing that if you get a chance. But so it's not truly a goat scream. What it is it is a sound loop from Apple's Pro Logic. Okay, and it's from Pro Logic 9, and it's called the Andre Whelm Scream. And Andre, I think, was a guy that worked for Apple in their sound engineering department.
Me this story now,
back in the early, 20-teens or whatnot, or 2000s, because this would have been pre-2009, right? So I was like, okay, well, if you own Pro Logic, you have the ability to use their sounds in your projects. Like a dum-dum, I just went and bought, Pro Logic. The new version, Pro Logic 10, and put it on my computer, paid $300 for it. And I go into the sound loops, and I'm like, okay, let's look for that Andre Whelm scream. And, I'm going down, and there's a bunch of Andre ones in there.
Yeah.
Andre this, Andre that. Get down to where the Andre W should be. Nothing. Absolutely, it's a Zippo. There's no Andre Whelm scream in Pro Logic 10. So I'm like, okay, I start Googling and find that it's in Pro Logic 9. So okay. Pro Logic 9. All right, how do I get Pro Logic 9? Well, it was created in 2009. It came on 16 DVDs that you would install on your computer. So I go and find a copy of Pro Logic 9, all 16 DVDs, and I purchase it. And I say, okay, great. I got Pro Logic 9 now. I don't have a DVD drive on my laptop because it's 2024. So I buy, an Acer off of Amazon for $19.99 because I'm cheap. And so I slap that thing USB-C on my computer. I put the first DVD in, and it says, you know what? Hey, Shawn, that's great. But you have to have Snow Leopard is the operating system that Pro Logic 9 is compatible with.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, Snow Leopard is 2010, maybe was when it was last available. So what do? I can't downgrade to snow leopard. And I'm looking, is there a way to emulate snow leopard? And I couldn't find any viable options. So what do?
By the way, you did all this computer tech stuff without us. This was
Divine Digital was like, hey, Shawn, we can't find the goat scream. I don't know what we're going to do. And I'm like, well, I'm an ER doctor.
There is a way.
Watch out.
Right.
There's going to be a way to find this. So of course I go on eBay, and lo and behold, there's a bunch of individuals who, for some reason, never upgraded their laptops from Snow Leopard in 2009. And I bought a MacBook Pro from 2010. Snow Leopard still installed, hasn't ever been updated, for $150. And I got it delivered. And so I've got this batteryless MacBook from 2010 plugged into my kitchen island here, right over to the right here. And I've got the Acer plugged in with the USB-C to USB-A adapter because, of course, there was no USB-C in 2010. And I'm loading the DVDs, and there's 16 DVDs, and I don't know which DVD this Andre Wellm Scream is on, right? So I'm loading it, zzz, and it's 2:00 in the morning because I'd gotten home from a shift, and I was just like, let's just get this done. And I get to about DVD 12, and the Acer starts doing this on the counter, and it's making a noise, and I'm like, and it's getting real hot, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know, should you have to keep putting the DVDs in. You can't pause the installation and just come back tomorrow. Yeah. So lo and behold, finally got DVD 16 in there. The Acer, sounds like the worst car engine you may have ever heard. And I open up ProLogic 9 on that Snow Leopard, and I go into the files. And when I saw it, it was like finding the Holy Grail. And there was Andre Wellm file. And so what I did is, clicked it, loaded it on my USB, put it over to my new MacBook, loaded it into my my ProLogic 10 Apple sound loops, and lo and behold, we had it. So so in my box of GOAT Grub things, so that I have the license to use the Andre Wellm Scream, I have ProLogic 9 16 DVDs and a Snow Leopard MacBook Pro from 2010.
If ever anybody comes after you for copyright, or I don't care what it is, you say, do you have any idea what I had to go through? Yeah,
right. Like I fully own the right to use this sound. So so we did get the GOAT Scream. It is it is the GOAT notification sound within GOAT Grub, and
which is a very reserved notification, by the way. Oh, if someone downloads, they're not hearing this. That is a very particular time, which I think is perfect because it's a very pronounced noise. It is. I mean, when we were testing, when we were in the testing phase, I had my phone on in the emergency department, and I came back from seeing patients, and one of the other doctors was like, "I don't know what's going on with your phone, but it is screaming constantly." And we're testing notifications for my app. I'm sorry. But it is, and the one thing that as an emergency medicine physician, we're used to interruptions. So I know how devastating interruptions can be when you have a thought process going on or you're doing something in your day. So the one thing we really did with GOAT Grub is we made sure that and it looks like overkill. When you go into push notification settings in our app, there are 9 or 10 different toggles, and so that you can really that's that question of, and when we have our beta launch party, I've got a plant in the audience, because I'm going to talk about what you can get notified. There's going to be a plant that's like, hey, Shawn, what if I like an app robust in features but light on notifications? Well, and then the next slide, the next slide in the presentation will be like, what if I like an app robust on features but light on notifications? And then we'll talk about how you can really change those notification settings to really only dial down what you want to get from GOAT Grub. But yeah, so and that's what I want people to view creating an app, especially if it's an app of enjoyment and not an app of necessity. It's an enjoyment problem. To think of this as kind of an adventure, and it's almost limitless what you can do. And you need to have personality and you need to have fun, because especially if you expect it to catch on, people to pay for it and use it, it has to be engaging. Yeah, that's 100% right, man. I want to just thank you for your time today. So real quick, somebody watching this episode might want to know a little bit more about GOAT Grub, what can you tell us now? Where do I go to find out more? When would I expect this thing to be on the market? How do I get a hold of it?
So if you go to www.mygoatgrub.com, you can see the features of the app. You can see what some of the screenshots look like, and it kind of spells out what the process is for GOAT Grub. If you click on the download now, we're not live on the App Store yet, but it will take you to a link where you can put in your information if you're interested in beta testing with us. And we can definitely get you on the beta test and have you give us some feedback. We expect that the beta testing is probably going to launch within the next month, and that it would be live on the App Store for everybody sometime in November. Additionally, if you're someone who owns a restaurant, you're a venue owner,
Right.
and you'd like to consider being a pilot partner with us, where you can advertise deals, send communications to our users, you'd be willing to put a follow us on GOAT Grub sticker in the window. You can also email us at admin@mygoatgrub.com. And we're offering a year's worth of free advertising to venues that would be interested in doing that from the get-go. And then the last plug would be if you're a food influencer in any major metropolitan area, or even if it's Paducah, Kentucky, and you want to partner with us in a way to synergistically get people back to your platform, you could reach out to us about being a GOAT guide, which is a function in the app. And what that allows you to do is establish your palette profile, GOAT 10 to 15 things to start. You can go to everything if you'd like. And our users will be able to see your goats and click a link that takes them to your platform of choice, whether that be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, your website, blog. So those are all the opportunities that are out there with us. But we look forward to doing business in that way. We hopefully are solving a problem for people that when I talk to individuals, they feel that this is a challenge, finding good places to eat where they don't have a meh meal. So our goal is to make meh meals a thing of the past.
Awesome, man. And listen, obviously we're excited about the concept. We were arm in arm, building this thing, all the details and the revisions and iterations. I think one of the things we're most excited about is, John, if you're willing to go that far to get that goat scream, well, we're buying ancient technology and MacGyvering it into other USB-Cs, and I don't know, there might have been like a Nokia phone in there somehow, some way, flux capacitors, etc. If you're willing to go that length to get that GOAT Grub, we're excited to see what's going to happen with this application and when it gets plugged into the world around us. So again, man, I thank you for your time. We're looking forward to this launch coming up here soon, man, and maybe let's revisit this in a little while once we get this thing up and running.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come back on once we're launched and tell you guys how it's going.